let's just take a step back and explain what the vision is. What does Strike do?
Julia, first of all, how are we this morning? Thanks for having me. Strike, the thesis we hold at Strike is that Bitcoin, the monetary network, is the best monetary network in human history, Julia. It's the only inherently global monetary network we've ever seen, and it offers finality both instantly and at relatively no cost anywhere in the world. And so we make use of that monetary network as it compares to the Visa monetary network or the Western Union monetary network or the Square monetary network or the PayPal monetary network. And we use the Bitcoin monetary network not necessarily to speculate on the price, but as financial rails under the hood to make for efficient, free, global, and instant payments. And we're talking about remittance, we're talking about checking out at commerce, we're talking about online tipping, and we make use of this really granular innovation for humanity in monetary network sense.
Okay, so we've got the Bitcoin network. We've also got something called the Lightning Network. And I know you were one of the earliest developers of this. Before we dig into the details of this global payments network that we're talking about, just explain the importance of the Lightning Network, because I do think my viewers need to understand how much of a game changer that is too when you're talking about particularly efficiency and speed.
You got it. Yeah, so everyone's familiar with the mainstream media critiques that Bitcoin is
right.
It's too slow, supposedly, to make use of payments, and it's too expensive, right? So the Lightning Network set out to achieve and solve those two variables. Is one, can we solve the variable of time for finality? Can we make a Bitcoin transaction instant? And then two, can we solve the variable cost so that a Bitcoin transaction isn't too expensive to buy a cup of coffee? And those were the two optimizations the Lightning Network set out to solve. And so when you take the Bitcoin legacy monetary network and you combine it with the protocol of the Lightning Network, now you have a monetary asset and a monetary network that's inherently global, and those two variables solve, where finality can be achieved instantly and finality can be achieved at relatively no cost. Again, no other monetary network in human history can say the same, and that's why it is such a big deal.
I mean, this is basically what Facebook was envisioning, I think, with Libra, but everyone went, whoa, we don't want to give Facebook that kind of power. Twitter just seems to, obviously with help, got there first. And I suppose that's no surprise given Jack Dorsey's interest in crypto. But can all the big social networks now in some way sort of tap into this via the capabilities of the Lightning Network?
Of course. Let me draw it akin to the internet, Julia, in the sense that all of these companies are tapped into the internet. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, they all use the World Wide Web. They all use HTTPS, TCP/IP requests and live on the same standard for communication. Bitcoin as a monetary network is doing the same for money. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, they can all interface with their users in a monetary, global, instantaneous, and free fashion on a singular standard for money in the same way that they operate on the singular standard for communication. Bitcoin network is not an optional monetary network. It is the monetary network to operate for instantaneous global settlement. And how different companies, different services, different internet networks like Twitter and Facebook, how they deem to use it is up to them. But it's a singular standard. In the same way that we don't have a lot of internets, we have one. We won't have a lot of monetary networks. We will have one that offers instantaneous, free global settlement.
I mean, the key here is, and it was something that I realized when I got to the United States. It was like, you want to send somebody money. Do you have Venmo? No. Okay. Do you have PayPal? Yeah, I do. Oh, okay, great. Then I can send via PayPal. Do you have Chase Pay? No, but I have Venmo. No one interacted with everybody else. So we needed some way of bringing all these sort of payment systems, these individual payment systems, together. I think anyone that is involved in sending money from A to B probably sat up and looked at this, whether it's a Visa, a MasterCard, a Western Union with remittances too. I mean, the capacity for this to be a game changer for me is huge. What are the limitations, Jack, as someone who's involved? What are the limitations of this that you can see?
The limitations, to be quite frank, is that we're not all onboarded onto the same standard. You're absolutely correct. If I have my Venmo account linked to my Twitter account, can I receive a tip from Japan? No, because the Venmo network is closed. Only other Venmo users can tip me, and that's restricted to the United States. If I have my Strike app linked to my Twitter account, can I receive a tip from Japan? Yes. In fact, I just did. And we need to get everyone onto the same monetary standard. And let's be clear, that doesn't mean you have to love Bitcoin. That doesn't mean you have to think the Bitcoin price is going to the moon, right? We're using it under the hood. So as a tip comes in from Japan on the Bitcoin rails, Strike's going to take the Bitcoin, auto-convert it to dollars, and credit you the dollars. So users don't know Bitcoin's being used, but it's a standard under the hood. So there's a world not far from here, Julia, where my Venmo account can pay my Cash App account. My Cash App account can pay and tip on Facebook. My Facebook account can tip someone on Instagram. Instagram can tip on Twitter. If we're all on the same standard in the same way that we're all on the same internet, interoperability and connectivity becomes seamless, easy, global, instant, and free.
Yeah, and the point here is that you don't have to accept Bitcoin, for example. If it's transferred in Bitcoin, you could accept to receive it in US dollars or Japanese yen, to your point, if it's coming from Japan. Okay, so I mentioned in the introduction that it was virtually costless. What is the relative cost? I mean, if you're doing like a transaction on a credit card, the average cost, I guess, is around 2.5%. How low and what is the cost of using this? And if it is so low, Jack, how does Strike make money?
Yeah, well, how low can it get? That low.
Yeah, race to the bottom.
Zero. Race to the bottom, baby. Yeah, so let's talk about the 2.5% of a card processor. Why? It's because all of the legacy fixed costs and intermediaries, that's the key point, that are required to achieve settlement. When I go check out at a Starbucks, Julia, the dollars that I'm pledging to pay Starbucks don't instantaneously somehow jump out of my debit card and pop into the cash register. No, there's a lot of intermediaries, banks, credit association, balance sheet float that's required to achieve settlement for Starbucks to actually retain the dollars that I pledged to pay them. And that is why it's 2.5%. So for Strike, monetizing this is easy. Monetization is built into the system. Instead of a large retailer paying 2.9%, Strike we could charge them 0.05% if we want. And all of those 0.05%, it's all cash profit. And no other processing or monetary network can bring prices down that low because of the fixed cost. They'd go out of business. They'd go bankrupt. So Strike, we can be as revolutionary as with tech as we are with pricing, and monetization is built into the system in that sense. And to all the legacy monetary networks that just can't compete.
And it's not instant, but it's far quicker actually than what we're seeing today in terms of the old payment rails, quite frankly. As any small business owner watching knows, it can take days and weeks for transactions to settle, and that can be a huge problem for any business, which is why I think this is also so transformative as well. Know your customer. How are you getting around that? Because, I was speaking to the chief legal officer of Gemini, which is a big cryptocurrency exchange, and they were talking about the challenges of know your customer rules when we're talking about the crypto space in particular and trying to understand who's doing what, particularly where regulators are concerned. How do you get around that? Very quickly, Jack.
We don't get around anything. We're a regulated entity. We comply with regulation. We take it very, very seriously. And compliance is a big deal. Listen, we're living in an extraordinarily disruptive time. Imagine a world before the internet. It seems scary. And we're living through a similar dematerialization and disruption for money. It's the same thing. And so everyone around the world, whether you're a consumer, a retailer, a business, or a regulator, is adapting, learning. And so we're good relationships. We're compliant, always looking to learn. And so we're not getting around anything. We're executing and working in lockstep as we should.
I should have said, how are you handling it rather than getting around it? I didn't mean to infer that you were bypassing any rules, Jack. You're sensitive to that. Now, I was going to ask you about El Salvador, but I don't have time. I'm going to have to get you back. I have to ask where you are. You look like you're in the most phenomenal walk-in wardrobe in the world, except it's empty. Jack, where are you?
I am in a giant empty women's closet. You're exactly correct, Julia.
Not necessarily a woman's.
You're right. I guess technically it's a giant empty men's closet because it's mine. It's a good point.
I could definitely feel that. I could definitely feel that.